All right, let's dive into something that sounds completely impossible. We're going to talk about how a drug, a water pill that's literally designed to make you pee more, can somehow be the perfect treatment for someone who already pees way too much. It sounds totally backwards, right? Well, the science behind it is just fascinating.
I mean, this is the real head-scratcher. Just imagine for a second you have a patient who is losing liters and liters of water every day. They're stuck in this awful cycle of being incredibly thirsty all the time. And then their doctor hands them a prescription for a diuretic, a pill famous for, making people go to the bathroom. How on earth could that possibly be the right move?
Okay, so let's just lay it out plain and simple. This is the paradox in a nutshell. Everyone, and I mean everyone, expects a diuretic to lead to more urine. But in this one specific condition we're talking about, the reality is the dead opposite. It actually leads to less urine. So let's unravel this thing. To crack this case, we first need to understand the underlying condition. It's called nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, or NDI for short. And let's be super clear about one thing. That word diabetes in the name is kind of misleading. This has absolutely nothing to do with blood sugar or insulin. It's purely a problem of the body's water regulation. Think about your kidneys for a second. They're these amazing, super efficient recycling plants. In a normal situation, they pull back the vast majority of water right at the beginning of the process. About 65% gets reabsorbed in the first section, the proximal tubule, and then another 25% right after that. That last little bit is the variable part. It gets fine-tuned at the very end, depending on what your body needs at that moment.
Now here's where everything goes wrong. That final fine-tuning step, it's all controlled by a hormone called ADH. You can think of ADH as the body's command to conserve water. But in NDI, the kidneys have basically gone deaf to that command. The signal is being sent, but the kidney's receiver is broken. They are resistant to ADH. And the result of this breakdown in communication is just, well, it's a disaster for the body's water balance. The body is practically screaming, hey, save water. But since the kidneys can't hear the ADH hormone, that last critical chance to pull water back is totally lost. It all just flows right on out. Okay, so the very last part of the kidney's plumbing is broken. It won't listen to instructions. Since we can't fix it directly, we have to get clever. The solution is this really beautiful, indirect, 5-step workaround. Let's walk through exactly how it works.
Here it is, the entire game plan on one slide. So let's take it step by step. It all starts with step 1. We give the patient a thiazide diuretic. And no, that's not a typo. The goal here is to intentionally cause a small, controlled loss of salt and water from the body. Now this is where the body's own genius kicks in. In step 2, the body's internal sensors immediately notice this slight dip in volume and they trigger the emergency conservation plan. This leads right into step 3. The kidneys start working overtime to reabsorb a lot more salt way earlier in the system, in that upstream part that's still working perfectly. And as you probably know, wherever salt goes, water is sure to follow. And this creates the key to the entire solution in step 4. Because the body is now pulling back water so aggressively at the beginning of the pipeline, there's a lot less fluid left to even get to the broken, leaky final section of the kidney. We are essentially starving the leak at its source. Which brings us to the totally mind-blowing result in step 5. Even though we started this whole thing with the diuretic, the final outcome is a powerful anti-diuretic effect. By hijacking the body's own compensation systems, we drastically cut down on the total amount of urine that escapes. It's a truly amazing physiological hack. Let's put some real numbers on this because it shows just how serious this is. A patient with NDI can easily lose something like 10 liters of water a day. Just try to picture that. That's over 2.5 gallons. It's a debilitating, constant, exhausting cycle of thirst and urination.
And then what happens after they get treated with a thiazide diuretic? That urine output plummets to a much more manageable 3 to 4 liters a day. This isn't just some tiny tweak. For the patient, this is a life-changing reduction that finally breaks that awful cycle. This is the paradox in action.
So let's bring it all home and connect the dots for the big reveal. Why does this incredible trick work so well in this specific case when it would do the exact opposite in a healthy person?
It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. In a normal kidney, ADH is working perfectly to manage water balance, so taking a thiazide just makes you lose more water. But in an NDI kidney, that whole ADH system is offline, it's broken. So the only strategy that can possibly work is to prevent all that water from ever reaching that broken final part. And that's exactly what the thiazide accomplishes, just indirectly. You know, the entire beautiful mechanism can be summed up in this one sentence. This is the expert take right here.
If you can understand this, you've mastered the diuretic paradox. It's all about increasing reabsorption at the start of the process to decrease water delivery at the end.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought, doesn't it? This treatment works by creating a small, new, and controlled problem, that mild volume loss, to solve a much bigger, out-of-control one. It really makes you wonder, what other clever, counterintuitive solutions like this are out there in medicine just hiding in plain sight? Thanks for digging into this with me.